Hello, everyone. I hope everyone is having an excellent day. We're just going to do a quick audio test to make sure that you can hear everything. So we are good to go. So this week we have a few things going on. So work has been a little bit crazy for me this week. Lawns have been cooling, but at the same time, my husband hasn't been as peppy as what he normally is. He's a bit sick, so it's been a bit rough getting things done. Uh, but at least the work calls are coming in. Okay, so let's start off with what we're going to be talking about tonight. We're going to be talking about how Morrison has avoided any consequences over his secret ministry, $1 million report that we'll never see, an attempt to end the Robodebt debate, how a BLM protestor had her charges dropped, an entitled woman that ripped off people is attacking Gen Z, the Australian Christian lobby to pressure the LNP over drag queen story time. Dean Andrews has roasted the LNP over an energy plan that the LNP has. Jacinta Price has a plan. It's a hateful plan, and this is what they always do. Alan Tudge's resignation. If John Barilaro thought that there was a chance to avoid the inquiry into his New York appointment and the jobs of the boys, no, there's been an inquiry. We're going to talk about that. And the very famous Serina Russo, not the brightest person I've listened to lately. There's more. England. There's a very interesting story about how England is becoming like a MAGA kind of feel. So stay tuned for that and more. I hope you like it. Make sure you leave a comment and give this video a like. So let's start it off. No issues for Morrison in secret ministries. So as we've discussed previously, Scott Morrison obtained certain ministries to be the front cabinet, essentially. He wanted to be his own fixer of everything, you know. We thought that we were just giving that name to Chris Pine, but it turns out Scott Morrison had his own weird plan. But let me show you a way that Scott Morrison has avoided any accountability. Okay, so there was a committee that was formed to make Scott Morrison accountable to talk about this stuff. Now, when it come up, I thought, okay, they definitely can see like a prima facie case to actually indict him for this, like properly, after the inquiry would be over, because this sounds quite criminal to deceive the public on, you know, which minister was actually acting in for us as a representative, and that we were not made aware of who was doing what. And I thought, yeah, they're definitely going to do something. Turns out I was wrong, and you're going to have me admit that. Former Prime Minister Scott Morrison will not face further consequences from a powerful parliamentary committee over the secret ministry saga. In December, Greens leader Adam Bank called for Mr Morrison to be referred to the Privileges Committee after he appeared to admit he had misled Parliament. Now, this should have been the part where it wasn't just the Greens, Labor did as well. They did their own calls for this to be investigated. This should have really, really tipped them over. But why it didn't is quite an interesting thing, because these bodies are supposed to be independent that decide these things. Now, we know that the LNP stacked a lot of things. Now, the thing that intrigues me about this is that the lack of drive by anybody to really do something. Now, this is sort of like the biggest stumbling block. and everyone's just halted the whole thing. So that's quite disappointing. But on the first day of Parliament for the year, Speaker Milton Dick ruled that there was not enough prima facie evidence that Mr. Morrison had deliberately misled the House. Now, that's interesting because Milton Dick is actually someone that I physically voted for. He's a Queensland representative. He is ALP to the core. So this was like quite a shocking statement. And he does have a law degree. So he used all the correct terminology in like criminal sort of terms. But I was a bit disappointed that the accountability for Mr. Morrison not only doesn't seem to be there, but there doesn't seem to be any push now that Milton Dick has made that final call. During the November censure motion about his secret appointments, Mr. Morrison claimed that the ministry list tabled in Parliament referenced that the ministers may be sworn in to administer additional departments. Okay, I consider these decisions in hindsight were unnecessary and that insufficient consideration was given to these decisions at the time, including non-disclosure of Mr. Morrison, said. Mr. Bain said relevant ministry lists from that time did not note that the former Prime Minister had been appointed to the additional portfolios. He then called on the Speaker to consider whether Mr. Morrison's reliance on the ministry list and his admission of non-disclosure constitutes a deliberate misleading of the House. Mr. Dick pointed to the findings of an inquiry on the matter of the former High Court Judge Virginia Bell, which said that the lack of disclosure to the appointments to the public was apt to undermine the public confidence in government. The Speaker said the finding was the most concerning, but did not think that there was enough evidence to constitute a referral to the committee. The matter was deliberately misleading the House. It is a serious one, and rightly. There should be a prima facie evidence that the House has been misled and that the misleading has been deliberate, Mr. Dick said on Monday. And I'm not able to grant the precedence for this referral on this occasion. Now, this to me felt like a gigantic step back for both Labor to hold someone accountable for this very corrupt abuse of power, but to use legalese as a way around it, like to say, to put it in the same level as something that you can sidestep, like, yeah, there isn't enough here, but there should be further looking into how deep this thing went. And I sort of think that they wanted it to just go away. For some reason, there's something that they're not saying here. I feel like I could be wrong. But let me know in the comments what you think about that. So now that that's there, I think that there's real evidence to suggest that Scott Morrison did do something wrong. Even Milton Dick admits that. So it's hard not to be disappointed with that particular finding. So the next one goes to another type of corruption. Now, in the next story, we're going to talk about how there was $1 million report into Robodebt that we never actually got to see. Now, what made this particular report so bad is, one, you paid for this report. Two, this report was shelved and no one knows. It can never, ever be seen. We'll never, ever be able to see this. To me, this is a level of corruption. So the more that we learn about what Scott Morrison did, the more corrupt it looks to me. You might have a difference of opinion, but as far as I'm concerned, Scott Morrison totally knew what he was doing. So listen to Bill Shorten's take on that alone. It's quite striking to hear him call it out right from the jump. Okay.
We've learned that engagements between Pricewaterhouse and senior DHS officers occurred more than weekly. The minutes of one of those meetings on March the 10th, quote, senior departmental representatives are saying, and I quote, political criticism has lost steam, and the Ombudsman report will say all aspects of the system are good. Further, the minister is interested in what we have to do now. What can we press accelerator on in terms of recovery? End quote. We further learned there was a visual presentation of this review provided to the former minister in mid-May 2017. It notes that the former minister's preference was to receive slides as he was a former consultant. We further learned that a final draft report was prepared at the end of May. It's about 93 pages long. It was dated June and it was promised to be delivered on June the 2nd. Then, nothing. Quite literally, I report to the House that nothing happened. This draft report was never sent. Apparently, there was never any written request for it not to be sent or to be sent. It simply just disappeared. The trail went cold. $1 million was paid, but no report.
My guess is that not only, I think this is like a Barnaby report. It doesn't exist. That's my guess. Because there is evidence to suggest that the LNP did cook the books a lot, particularly when it spoke about money funneling in and out of portfolios, and the way that they were doing this was extraordinarily corrupt. So I want to know exactly who received this money and what's right at the end of it, because somewhere along the line someone got paid, not just PwC, that private entity that constructed this report, but I think that there's more to it than just that. And I think we have a right to see this report. And if it doesn't exist, we need to know why not. And we should have every cent of that back.
So what we have, though, is the Royal Commission has now found what $1 million report looks like, and I'll table it. But no one can actually recall in the Royal Commission why the final report was never sent. $1 million of taxpayers' money and nothing. Literally nothing. Because of the Royal Commission, we've got the report. But the question which I think Australians want to know is, why was the report really shelved? And I turned to the Royal Commission. They noted that whilst the draft report employed neutral language, it was actually a very damning indictment of DHS's system of debt recovery. The report said that the promises of the money to be saved were overstated. It reported the accuracy of the scheme was disastrous. It's a big shame that $1 million was spent on a report that was never tabled, but it's a bigger shame that we missed the opportunity to stop Robodebt 5 years ago.
So I don't think we're ever going to fully see what they did here. What they did here is so blatantly corrupt. They're not even airing the RC like big enough. Like, this is still going and we still don't see all of it. So when we're talking about what we can physically get our hands on in this stuff, there's really not a drive for anyone to cover this. So ABC briefly covers it and a few other places, and you can actually click onto the link to the parliamentary hearings. They go for about 6 hours at a time. I've gone through and picked out some of the best bits, as well as other Twitter users have made that process go considerably better. And I thank them for their dedication to sit for that long. Like I said earlier, the things have swung back in full work week for me. And with my husband sick, I haven't had as much time as I needed to catch all of that. But I think it's deeply important that we all tune into that Robodebt stuff. And if we can, as I've been going through week by week, breaking that down. So there has been attempts by the left to, not only did they manage to end the Robodebt saga, not only did they get the courts to admit that it was illegal, not only did they make sure that people were compensated back in a class action lawsuit, but they seem to be acknowledging that there was a lot of hurt and pain put into this. Now, they've done all they can to promote this Robodebt hearing, but they don't own the media like the right do. So we're kind of stuck with the narrative of it's there, but you're just not going to hear it because it's not politically advantageous it's not politically motivating for the Liberals to have that out there. My words are all messing me up today. Okay, so next story I want to talk about more Robodebt. So Bill Shorten has taken a lot of these into question time. Listen to his response as they continually interrupt him on Robodebt. This I find good. Okay, I just need to tee it up again because it automatically starts playing even when you don't want it to, because wonderful, that's what it is. Okay. Okay. They couldn't stop him in the end as he was talking about it. Let's start with this one.
Public hearings at the Royal Commission. Thank you, Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Government Services. After the recent fortnight of public hearings at the Royal Commission into Robodebt, what have we learnt about who was responsible for the shameful Robodebt scheme?
Now listen to how many times he's interrupted.
Minister for National... I'll hear from... Order. Members on my right, I'll hear from the Manager of Opposition Business.
Well, so shifted responsibility for not understanding about the illegality of the scheme to senior public servants, one of whom's now deceased. Further, he said that he had no visibility of the scheme.
The Minister will resume his seat. The Manager of Opposition on a further point of order.
Well, Mr Speaker, standing orders are very clear.
During his evidence to the Commission, the member for Aston...
The Minister will resume his seat. I call the Leader of the Opposition on a point of order.
Well, Mr Speaker, in light of your earlier words, I just don't know.
Surprise. All right, I'll hear from the Manager.
Mr Speaker, the question is not whether Royal Commissions are entitled...
Order. I'll hear from the Leader of the House.
Mr Speaker, in considering it, as has been asked by the Manager for Opposition Business, I just refer to practice where it's really clear that Royal Commissions are allowed to be asked about. And if you look at Royal Commissions that have been held during the life of the previous government, a very different argument was being put back then. There is a long-held precedent on being able to deal with Royal Commissions.
But he wasn't going to be stopped. So Bill Shorten eventually got his moment. Listen to how incredible he takes it by storm.
Aston acknowledged that, one, he was responsible for the administration of the Robodebt scheme between February 2016 and December 2017. Two, he knew that Robodebt produced inaccurate debt notices. Three, he did not think to raise questions about the legality of the scheme for the duration of his time as the Minister. Four, he requested the personal files of 52 Centrelink recipients who had complained in the media in a period between Christmas 2016 and January 2017. Five, he did think, however, to get legal advice about accessing the personal files of the 52 public complainants as opposed to seeking advice as to the lawfulness of the whole scheme. Now, the member for Aston did pay forensic attention to people complaining about the scheme, but never the complaints. He investigated the messengers, but never the message. Furthermore, when the Minister was asked about his responsibility, he shifted responsibility.
Hold on. I need to stop on that for a moment. What he just pointed out was a huge thing because it doesn't get long to draw these things out. I think there's like 5 minutes on the clock. Okay, there's a couple of things there. So he's pointing out that the people who were telling on the Robodebt scheme, the LNP was deliberately doxing them, giving out all their names and what they did, basically making sure that you could basically call them the worst people on earth. To have the Murdoch entity where Rachel Miller, Alan Tudge's partner at the time, I don't know if they're still together. I think it's Alan Tudge. Yes, might be. At the time, what ended up happening is that she would go to very friendly media, and she admitted to this. I showed you last week that, where they would deliberately say things about the people that were threatening this scheme, that were pointing out that it was a bad scheme, that it took actual lives. So I think that that's really good to note as this goes along.
For the scheme to the former Prime Minister, former treasurer, former finance minister for prioritising finding savings. The minister, when he was asked about responsibility, made it clear that he blamed the ERC. He made it clear that he blamed senior public servants. It wasn't his fault that he didn't know about the illegality. Instead, he said senior public servants should have told him, including one who's now deceased. He said that he had no visibility about the scheme when it was brought to Cabinet, and he said that the issues of current policy responsibility were the matter for the former Social Services Minister. At different times, not only did he blame most of his current Cabinet colleagues, he then blamed the left-wing media, he then blamed previous Labor governments. The human blame factory here also blamed the complainants of the scheme. The last word should be left to his former media advisor, who put it better than most. The minister requested the file of every person who appeared in the media in order to make other victims think twice before coming forward. What a fine specimen of coalition ministerial responsibility.
Order.
A member for...
So with all of that, that has revealed on a very big front that they all were bad actors in this. And left-wing media, I mean, come on. Wouldn't you be seeing this round the clock if there was a left-wing media? Wouldn't this be making headlines on newspapers? Yeah, see, when you got a bullshit excuse, it's easy to trot around and pretend like that's, you know, they're the perpetual victim in every scenario. It's awful. Okay, so every week that we've spoken about Robodebt, I want you to understand that this is a massive issue. And take no, if anything that you take away from this, understand that the Conservatives have a plan to reheat this. That's why it's not making the media. So Robodebt is not hitting the headlines on the RC. Not only does it embarrass the LNP, but they definitely have a plan to reheat this. And that's in papers that they wrote themselves, that they thought the policy was so good, even when it was deemed illegal, that they plan to do this again. They can never, ever hold power again, ever. This is like never again kind of stuff. Oh, that's huge. Okay. Next, I want to talk about a Black Lives Matter protester had her charges dropped. Now, this one's going to be a big story because there was a lot of controversy about how we treated protesters. And no, not like the crazy right-wing ones that are marching down the street pretending that we're still in some lockdown with Ava Yemenis screaming things out. We mean like legitimate protesting. But here's the deal. I even have to support the idiot's right to protest, even when it's over something stupid like lockdowns that aren't really happening, you know, and carrying the Mike Lindell crazy train. Because if you don't allow even the crazies to protest, you can't allow people in the BLM movement that have legitimate issues do their thing. So you have to weigh out exactly how you talk about this kind of stuff. It's quite divisive. And you have to remember that protesting has also led to some very violent things like a whole ass insurrection, you know, because that was originally a weird protest over an election. And then it turned into a whole insurrection. So that's why you've got to be very moderated. Also understanding that a lot of civil rights were gained through protesting. So this is a very powerful movement. A lot of women's rights and workers' rights were gained through protesting, gay people's rights, and so many more. So keep that in mind as we're having this discussion. Not only that, I think the lady is absolutely lovely, and it never should have reached this level of crazy, in my opinion. Okay. Victoria Police withdraw charges against Black Lives Matter protester. So Makiri Onus and Crystal McKinnon had been accused of breaching Chief Health Officer's COVID discretion by arranging a protest in 2020. Now, if you remember, the Americans were dealing with their own issues with BLM protests in 2020. We were showing solidarity with that. We were being reasonable with it, though. We were masking, we were walking into the streets, we were being very careful. And eventually, in one particular state, in New South Wales, they were all paraded into a train station and trapped as a result. Because, you know, that's just how you be horrible. Okay, so Victoria Police have withdrawn charges against Black Lives Matter protesters who had been accused of breaching public health orders. The women first fought in June last year to have the charges withdrawn after the lawyers were notified the case would be dismissed and the charges were fatally flawed. That was incorrect, according to prosecutors, who claimed in an email to lawyers sent by someone who did not have the power to make that decision. A second attempt to toss the charges were made in November when prosecutors attempted to charge their wording. Magistrate Andrew McKenna ruled against the charges on Tuesday and they applied to withdraw the charges. The matter has been carefully considered in the prosecution. As a result of the ruling, the court prosecution seeks to withdraw charges, with prosecutor Matt Fisher said. See, now that's going to be a super duper case. That we should never have charged anyone for that kind of protesting. Bringing light to legitimate issues around policing. Absolutely. That was a meritorious thing to be protesting for. But like I said earlier, we even have to support the non-meritorious protesting, because if you don't, you're kind of in this loop. And then you get, you know, if the Conservatives get power, they get to deem anything that the left does not with good merit. And then the loop continues. So you have to be really careful about how you discuss this stuff. Okay. Entitled woman who ripped off people in wages, attached younger generation, because of course, you know, if it's not enough that you rip people off, you attack other people for not being able to survive. A little bit like she doesn't understand things. Okay, so, oh, here we go. ABC, so the ABC decided to post an article, all right, where Kerry Boylett is whinging about the millennial entitlement, while Kerry Boylett is the GM, general manager of Miravail, accused of 126 million in wage theft. Yeah, I think it's fair to say ABC aren't fact-checking anymore. We know that program's essentially gone, but under IDA, they just don't care. There's no thought about what they're doing. It's just out there now. So understand that's where they're at. And don't expect for it to get better. I really want to tell you something positive about that. I so do, but I don't have that for you. And we shouldn't have this thing where, you know, women like this come forward and they go, I'm going to criticize other people because she's made her money and thinks that it's all same. She thinks that the economy today is like the same as the 90s. No, you're lying. There's something wrong with you. It's deeply, deeply deceptive to do what she did. Okay. These are topics that I think are the most pressing that we need to address. There are a range of things, and what I arrive at is I find moments to dissect what I find most relevant for my weekly lives. The Australian Christian lobby is taking to pressure the LNP over drag queen story time. Now, this is the most grotesque thing to do because, of course, you can't be a Christian lobby and be rational and kind and normal. No, you really got to show them how much you hate the fact that children are being read nice little books with nice little voices, with nice people reading them those books. You have to make it sound as awful as possible because getting volunteers in the library is already very difficult. Why not make it non-existent? Because they're not there to educate you. They're just there to be terrible, terrible humans. Okay. Tasmania's Education Minister is resisting calls to cancel a book reading of Drag Queen state-run library at the state's Deputy Premier declared that wouldn't be that he wouldn't be taking his children. The Launceston Library Drag Queen Storytime next Wednesday in the celebration. Pride in 2023. The event aimed at 2 to 5 year olds is free and has already sold out. Yeah. When you're that guy that's like, I won't take my kids, but this thing's already sold out in a conservative state. In other words, we know it's popular and we know that even in this environment that where we got elected, this isn't going to go down well. And there's really no drive to really do what the Americans are doing here. Why? Because people can see that it's all like culture war stuff. We don't do culture war crap here. We just don't. We're not interested in it because it becomes boring and we have to get back to our real issues. Okay. It has been promoted for toddlers to frock up and dress up and throw on a tiara while Tasmanian drag performer Pussy Poppins takes on the adventure of Frolic and Whitney and Britney Chicken Divas. At a media conference on Monday, Deputy Premier Michael Ferguson was asked if he supported the library hosting the event. I think a lot of people would express concern, but it's important it's a parental choice determining factor here. But I wouldn't be taking my children, the Conservative said. Drag Queen Storytime event have been held at libraries across Australia, but now the first time in Launceston that the library has hosted one. All libraries across Tasmania are run and funded by the Tasmanian government. In a post that the ACL put up, it's of course hateful, and then said that they expected their government to promote as toddlers entertainment. Not what Tasmanian parents expect their government to promote as toddlers entertainment. It's being considered adult entertainment. Oh, yeah? You show me where we're reading Princess and the Frog as that being some sort of adult entertainment, you idiots. That's my point. They don't even think through their attacks. Like, it's not relevant. It's so easy to beat this stuff down. So, on Tuesday, the Liberals said that they're not going to intervene. That's an event that has been organised by Libraries Tasmania. They plan to run hundreds of events across the libraries every year. A lot of them in line with special theme weeks, like Tas Pride Week, Seniors Week, and 2610 Literacy Week. I'm advised that this is a ticketed event and parents need to decide if their kids to attend. I'm not going to step in and make that decision for everyone. So it's just an event for children. I don't see the outcry, but of course the ACL has to make it into something. So that's where we're at. So now that we're past that, we need to talk about Dan Andrews going after Pesutto over energy. Okay, take a listen to this amazing clapback to him talking about energy and privatisation. I think Dan Andrews always does amazing. This is just another example of that.
of electricity was a spectacular failure. It did not deliver lower prices. It did not secure jobs. It did not. Well, some are supportive of privatisation, and whilst they find their voice in very few circumstances, they get very loud whenever you criticise the privatisation of critical utilities. Well, let Hansard reflect that the new leader of the opposition is a strident supporter of privatised electricity. Just in case there was any doubt. Keep going. And it can further be reflected in Hansard that the Leader of the Opposition is quite up and about to be called out on this. So the community got it wrong, it would seem. The community got it wrong. And the member for Hawthorn, the Leader of the Opposition, knows better. Again, back to the central point, from someone who supports 100% of the profits going offshore. If you want a debate on this, bring it on. Bring it on. You're all over the shop. You are literally all over the shop. Literally all over the shop. Like, if you want to be Jeff Kennett's lackey, then just be that.
The Premier would know that question time isn't an opportunity to debate extraneous matter to the question, which he clearly is doing, and I'd ask you to bring him back to the question.
Premier will come back to answering the question.
Catastrophic failure of energy privatisation is not extraneous. Yes. It is very relevant to every household and every business and every worker who was promised their job was safe and then got sacked. We are bringing back the SEC. Some people are very much opposed to that. Today's announcements in relation... Well, the Leader of the Opposition seems unaware that there's a difference between ownership... who owns the Land Titles Office? Who owns registration and licensing of Vic roads? Victorians do. Question time isn't an opportunity for him to have a private debate.
Ask the Premier to come back to the question.
It's a very public debate because it's about public ownership. It's about public ownership, and keep the points of order coming.
He just smacks him. This is like a toddler just being told, I told you couldn't have that cookie. Why would you keep trying to get that cookie? Why would you keep asking about the cookie? Why wouldn't you just accept the premise that the cookie, you lost the debate for the cookie? But instead they're like, I'm just going to make sure that we're going to shut it all down. Why not? You know, that's a nice, feeble, awful attempt. But, yeah, see, when you look like an idiot, Dan Andrews will definitely call you out. And that was a stunning performance, as always, by Dan Andrews to call him out and then say, well, if you want to be Jeff Kennett's lackey, go right ahead, show people in there and have it noted in Hansard. He just totally smacks it around and makes sure you understand that that this is their plan, that they're going to privatise power in Victoria if they get power. This is the thing. It's the whole Liberal ideology. Nothing should be in public hands and everything should cost 10 times more. And if it all goes belly up, blame Labor. And that's basically where we're at. So if you're in any confusion about being a Conservative, understand what you're signing up to. You are signing up to privatisation that will lead to things being more expensive, fail as a model, and then they're just going to blame Labor. That's basically the whole ethos. So Conservatives here that want to troll that understand that's exactly what you are. And it doesn't matter whether it's here or the United States. It has the same thing. It's almost like they agreed on the same playbook, and it's weirdly specific on how many corporations get a big payoff. But at the same time, their rhetoric is always, big business is bad and big oil, you shouldn't be allowed to be doing all these things. It's kind of weird that their rhetoric is anti the thing that they're trying to implement. And they're like, we're for families. Yet they attack families by privatising everything and making the cost of living harder for them. Conservatives are one messy lot of people. But then they're like, no, let me bring you back round. Let me make you see that you should vote for me. How will I do that? In a Conservative's mind, it goes something like this. I'm going to tell you that women should... So, pardon me, that women shouldn't have rights. And then we're going to tell you that gay people shouldn't either. We should just let them float away in the background because that's an attack on family values if we do. That's their whole way that they operate. They just do it with sneaky little terms like, we're protecting families by excluding people. We're protecting families by not letting women make choices about their bodies. We're protecting families by telling gay people that they shouldn't be allowed to adopt children because they will insinuate that they are somehow some sort of predatory nature, which is so far from reality. Fact is, this is an issue that's been ongoing. No party owns family values. But let me tell you this, the left definitely does believe in the reason that you can't own family values is because each family has a different set of family values. And it's a little weird that the left would delve into what you personally is going to see as a family value. Their plan is more economical and to stay the hell out of however you want to live. You want to live it in a certain family that binds you as a group or on your own, you should have the right to do that. You want to have a certain amount of children, you should have a right to do that. You want to protect yourself from having a certain amount of children, you should be able to do that. Basically, I'm telling you, the left wants you to have more choices about how you want to live your life. And that's why they don't do the whole culture war thing, because it's not really attractive. So, there. Okay. So, next I want to talk about another stupid conservative that does something very stupid. And because this comes from what should be typically from the Aboriginal community, which is not normally the approach that I'll go with this, but because Jacinta Price is Aboriginal as an Aboriginal woman, she's using her podium as that particular demographic to trash her own people. She has I'm dropping things. She has a plan that purely involves hate. Her promotion is pure hate. Think I'm wrong? Check it out. Okay, Jacinta. A plan for nothing, an attack on everything. It's a plan to just be awful. NT Chief Minister denounces Jacinta Price's bill to reinstate the intervention of era alcohol restrictions. A fight has erupted between the Northern Territory Labor government and Jacinta Price over a bill which a senator has introduced to federal parliament that seeks to reinstate an intervention era restrictions on the NT Chief Minister, saying it was drafted without consultation and confers on a body that does not exist. She is so full of it. Price, a country Liberal Party senator for the Northern Territory, tabled the Northern Territory as a safe measure bill on Wednesday, which provides all Territorians to be safe consuming and be exposed to alcohol and alcohol-related harm and violence. Keep in mind, this happens everywhere. There is violence and crime associated with alcohol all over the country. What you're not seeing is this. Here's what Jacinta largely leaves out. That this is in a smaller community. Therefore, there are less people. Therefore, it gets a bigger boom effect. I know carjackings happen all over the country. I know that there are destructive teenagers that are bored all over the country. I know that each community has an issue. I know that abuses happen in all homes all across this country. And it doesn't matter which background you come from, but my God, you shouldn't be restricted in rights based upon her ideals of what should happen to you. That's why the voice to Parliament is so important, because people like Jacinta don't have a plan. They've just got a hateful way of saying bad people. And that's basically how she does it. She wraps it up into pretty little phrases, and I'm not prepared to do that. This will ensure that there's a Commonwealth oversight over the Northern Territory government. In other words, she wants to get rid of states that do their own thing. She would like to control them. She's disgusting. Truly, truly disgusting. There's no reason for her to do this. She's going to do a bugger load more damage than what she needs to. But there will be a reckoning for her. I cannot wait to see these fake people that have been pretending to help people get called out. She wants to go on about how long someone was sitting at the tennis or whatever else. My God, when was the last time that she did anything for anybody but herself? The selfish, entitled woman wants to sit there and tell people what they can do in their personal homes because conservatives. It's reprehensible. Okay, next thing I want to talk about is Alan Tudge has resigned. Now, in light of the Robodebt saga and him due to testify and everything else, it didn't look too great, you know, with him appearing and Rachel Miller basically spilling the beans that he didn't handle his crap properly. So it didn't look real good. So then they made up family reasons. But they weren't done with that. They were like, no, we need a more constructive story than that. How about we just say that we received threats? Because, yeah, I mean, left-wing people could be violent people. I don't know. Mostly you see it on the right, but who am I to point out those facts? But he's claiming, weirdly, without any evidence at all, anecdotal or not, that he's received threats. Apparently, that's we're supposed to take his word for it because they're such an honest bunch of people. I mean, it's not like they're not trying to avoid a hearing into a very illegal scheme that they just pulled. Yeah, we'll take his word for it. That seems totally like something we should be doing. This is insane. But here we are, people. We can't ignore it. Okay, so here we go. Check this one out. Okay, oh, there it is. Okay, Alan Tudge resigns from Parliament. An emotional Alan Tudge has resigned from Parliament, revealing that his teenage children have been subject to death threats. Oh, he's using his kids that he never even seen. He was so busy having an affair. Oh, that's brilliant. That's brilliant. Oh, okay, now you seem to be worried about your kids. Okay, bro, let's call it out. You're an idiot. This is not going to do anything for you. This kind of political posturing, and Barnaby did the same thing. These conservatives are so grotesque in nature. They will abandon their children and then go, we can't talk about my children. No. You don't get to have it both ways. You don't get to be the terrible parent that is never there and use them as like a prop and, you know, for your little photo ops. And then cheat on your wives and not spend enough time with them and, you know, all that kind of stuff, and then use them for little cudgels. It's wrong. Okay.
A member of the coalition is set to quit Parliament as early as today. What can you tell us?
Yeah, that's happening. Alan Tudge is going. He's making the announcement after question time, I've been told by Liberal sources, Ash, just in the last couple of minutes. And then there will be a by-election. It's obviously up to the Prime Minister as to when that occurs. We can expect it in the next 2 or 3 months. Now,
fun fact about this by-election, there was talk that maybe Josh Frydenberg would jump in on this. Quickly he closed his mouth, realising, no, better not. It's not looking like it'll be a winner for him. So that's an interesting side note to that.
Now, the Daily Telegraph has speculation Josh Frydenberg could be in for a return. We know he's very keen to return to politics, but he's always had his sights on getting Kooyong again off Monique Ryan. So that would be slightly risky in the sense the government's poll ratings are still quite healthy. And Alan Tudge, I believe, you can correct me if I'm wrong on this because I've been scrambling trying to stand up the story, but he only has about a 4% margin, I think. So it wouldn't be a fait accompli were Josh Frydenberg to run. Obviously, we're trying to get hold of Josh Frydenberg now to see if he's interested, but I can confirm to you and our viewers now that after question time, Alan Tudge, the subject of several allegations and a harrowing day or two's evidence at the Robodebt Royal Commission, will be announcing his retirement from politics after question time today, and that will leave a hole on Peter Dutton's front bench. He put Tudge on the front bench, but he questioned that after the election, but he's going, Alan Tudge.
Goodness. And with that sort of margin, I mean, the Liberals would have to be a bit nervous about how that sort of by-election would play out. And I guess, as you say, if it ends up being Josh Frydenberg in the seat, that would really change the dynamics pretty significantly.
Yeah, it would. They'd be much more likely to hold it. I think they'd potentially be more worried about a Teal than Labor, but who knows?
Yeah, see, now they're getting into the speculating part. The part is that he's talking he resigned. Josh Frydenberg was like, hey, I might be able to grab this. And then the polling showed, no, really, that'd be quite disastrous if you did, and please don't do that. So looks like this one might be a win for Labor or a Teal. We'll have to see how that goes. Okay. Next one I want to talk about is John Barilaro. Now, this is a gentleman that we haven't heard from a while. I believe Friendly Geordie's got his wish and got him to resign. I think Friendly Geordie's made sure that the most corrupt person were in a position of stealing a club from the people in Sydney and doing numerous other things proved to be quite effective. So turns out Friendly Geordie's has exposed everything almost on John Barilaro. But check it out. Okay, John Barilaro's New York trade position was deemed to be part of the Jobs for the Boys inquiry actually found. Now, this comes off the back of Mr. Barilaro recently getting off an assault from a cameraman charge claiming mental health. Now, normally mental health is taken very, very seriously. Here on This Week in Politics, we believe that mental health should be taken with the utmost need and care. But in John's case, he is the sort of awful human being who would claim anything to get out of anything. See, it followed a flawed process that showed all trademarks of the Job for the Boys position. A parliamentary inquiry has found. An interim report found that the former Trade Minister, Stuart Ayres, quit the cabinet during the saga, showed poor judgment and inappropriate in his dealings with Mr. Barilaro in the lead up to the appointment. Again, how do we let this happen? It's incredible, the things that we do. Well, it's all going crazy. Still staying on New South Wales, because there is an election coming up there, I think it's really important to focus in on that, like how we did with the South Australian one and so forth. Like, there is a reason to do this. Okay. So, New South Wales brothers of Dominic Perrottet will not testify. Okay, here we go. No, that's not it. Okay, sorry, I am finding it. Okay, so Dominic Perrottet's brothers Charles and Jean-Claude ordered to appear before the Hillshire Council investigation. Two of the New South Wales Premier's brothers, Dominic Perrottet's brothers, have been summoned to give evidence at a state parliamentary inquiry into the Hillshire Council in the Northwest. A parliamentary upper house committee has summoned Hillshire Councillor Virginia Ellis and Christian Ellis, as well as Charles and Jean Perrottet, after they failed to respond to investigations to give evidence. The inquiry, which will sit for 2 days next week, is looking into allegations for impropriety by members of the council in Sydney's northwest and of property developers in the area. The committee said in a statement that 4 people summoned were key individuals who could assist the committee in its questions in relation to the Hillshire Council. Premier Perrottet said that he had not spoken with his brothers about being summoned. No, I haven't, not at all. The matter is for the upper house. I'm not going into those details, he said. Committee member of the upper house, Deputy Leader John Graham, said that the committee had issued the summons after the witness failed to respond to invitations to face the inquiry. So there's a couple of things here. One, that they are failing to come before the inquiry, and that two, that this is a federal offence. You can't actually just go, well, I'm just not turning up, tell him I sent my best wishes and we're good with that. No, that's not how this thing works. You actually do go to rock up. The committee is now seeking cooperation of witnesses who may have some light and shed some suggestions have been made, but I found it very hard to get them to give evidence. As a result, we've taken a serious step of issuing summons. We're hoping their cooperation with the committee. That's definitely going to keep going. That's definitely going to be an issue that will come up more. And as the state election rolls around, I don't think you can avoid talking about it. So the next thing I want to talk about is Serina Russo. She is a very good friend of the Liberal Party. And she's received a lot of government contracts. But is she an idiot? Sure, you listen to what she says in relation to mental health. Because, of course, they've got to be experts in everything. Because, having people on the most abhorrent lot of treatment in job agencies, contracts that she does, and ripping people off, in terms of, threatening to cut off their support unless they give them credit for getting them a job even when they haven't.
Hi, we've arrived. We've arrived at the most beautiful destination here on the beach. We've just done our lockdown 1 hour walking, and we want to share with you, this is the way to live this lockdown. Never give up on exercise, because mental health could be with us, and we need to make sure we prevent mental health.
We didn't edit that, apart from removing some background noise. Listen to it again. We are just shocked, perplexed that this woman, who receives an incredible amount of government funding for JobKeeper and various other programs, an extremely wealthy woman now, can make statements like this. What is going on?
Because mental health could be with us, and we need to make sure we prevent mental health.
She obviously doesn't mean that, but why is she allowed to be let loose with a camera and recording? That's what she said.
And how do we do it? Through exercise, through mental thought, through positive thought, through energy, and never giving up on your dreams. Have a great day, and remember, everyone's in lockdown here right now, and we are together. We will live together, and we will get through this together. And you have to, and me, have to visualize what is life after this pandemic. We can create it, we can design it, build a dream, and never give up on the dream. And remember, we will see you at the top. Ciao for now.
Yeah, that wasn't the most craziest thing that you've ever seen. I don't know. Seems a little bit crazy that we hand her millions of dollars and she has no understanding of mental health or understanding exactly what mental health is and how exactly to have a talk around mental health. Let's just hope that's in her position of, thousands of dollars in government grants, where mental health is definitely an issue in finding a job for a lot of Australians. She's not handing out that weird advice. Okay, this is our last story. So, England wanted to create a, if you will, a play on MAGA, and it didn't go so well. So here's this guy. He's going, how about we just bring back hangings and real men making Tories great again? Making Tories great again. Okay, so here's his 10-point plan. Oh, hold on. I don't know why it is doing this. Hold on. I need to just quickly fix this because it's not allowing me to do it. I normally have this all set up and now they want to know things. Okay. Oh, here we go. And I'll have to pull that back up because it's decided to be difficult. So making England great again, because originality isn't part of the process. It's just about repeating the same lines. Okay, so he wants to do capital punishment. He wants to, the country has gone soft, like you can eat like a king on 30 pence a day. So if you're struggling to make ends meet, you just don't know how to budget, apparently. He's got an opinion on the World Cup, discipline in children, because, whacking them was such a great move. That didn't traumatize anybody, did it? And the BBC wanting to defund that because it holds them accountable. They got an anti-immigration stance, the healthcare stance, and then he's like, should privatize that, school curriculum. Apparently it's too woke. And book can't make a move without some new book being banned or to issue a trigger warning. Yeah, because he's just an idiot. Identity. He'd like to attack people on pronouns. That's basically it. That's as cringy as what they want to be. That's the plan, and they're sticking with it. As idiotic as it all sounds. Okay, so I hope you have had a wonderful week. I want to thank you all for coming, and I thank you, and tune in next week, same time, same place next week. Thank you. Night.